So a rematch of the first round today will decide the finals. Jody Keith, Todd Stevens, and Tom Russ on the left. They will all be on the play, the 1 seed of the tournament. Had locked up their top 8 slot many hours ago. Continued to play anyway and didn't let up. He'll be against Dan Jessup. Todd keeping 6 cards on the play, Dan 5 on the draw. And we start. Todd, no Noble Hierarch or Birds of Paradise. One of the cards his deck really does rely on.
This is a matchup where they're not necessarily at their best, just because the creatures themselves aren't really worth a ton. Voice of Resurgence, Kitchen Finks, Night of the Reliquary, those are the bigger finds here.
Yeah, Jessup cycling a straight and just playing a basic island, one of 2 basic lands in his deck. And Todd will start with these value creatures. Voice of Resurgence is the play.
In Voice of Resurgence, there's no clean answers on the battlefield here. Dan's going to have to find a way to get that in combat or use removal spell and then have something else, one of those 2 things to deal with the token as well.
Yeah, a lot of times you'll just see players in these attrition matchups ignore the Voice of Resurgence if they can until they have a cleaner answer. Jessup cycles down to 16. May go all the way to 11 this turn, a fetch, a shock, a Thoughtseize, all at the ready.
Notably, not much in the way of counter spells for the Grixis Shadow deck. It's really just 3 Stubborn Denials here. So there's not a lot of stuff that forces you to play on Todd's turn. If Todd starts casting Collected Company on his own turn and still controls the voice, that can be very bad for Dan, though.
Right, that Stubborn Denial in his hand being kept in check by Voice Resurgence. Dan's going to fetch Shock here. Now the question will be, he can make Thoughtseize, or he could just go for a turn 2 Gurmag Angler with all the thought scouring and cycling he's done.
There's not a lot of stuff on turn 3 that you really need to Thoughtseize out of the way. If he doesn't have an answer for Knight of the Reliquary, that could be a problem. But for the most part, you'd like the Thoughtseize to tag Collected Company, especially because the Voice of Resurgence is already there.
And one of the things we've seen from Green-White, where Todd can be good in this matchup, is his deck is somewhat Thoughtseize resistant by virtue of having just so many of these value 3s. You know, Dan might see 3 of them. Okay, Thoughtseize, Knight of a Reliquary, sure, and then your opponent will play Eternal Witness.
Right.
Second Voice of Resurgence and a Birds of Paradise for Todd.
Dan did go with the Gurmag Angler there.
So the 5/5 will face off. Right now, it can't be killed in combat. You see just a pair of 2/2s, but if he tries to attack, they will get larger, leaving those star tokens behind. Thoughtseize from Jessup sees Kitchen Finks and Ramanap Excavator. That's one of the new cards here from Hour of Devastation. A 2/3 for 3 that allows Todd to play lands out of his graveyard. That's actually pretty relevant, as one of his lands here is a Horizon Canopy.
Yeah, he also has Wooded Foothills already in the graveyard, so he will, over time, just kind of go up a card every turn with the Excavator. Kitchen Finks, kind of an annoying creature there. You know, getting it out of the hand does make some sense. It's easier to have a kill spell that just takes care of the Excavator outright.
So we see Ramanap Excavator from Stevens. And pretty nice, he has plays Ghost Quarter from hand. And now Horizon Canopy up. And no more plays here for Jessup, didn't have another land. Horizon, so Ramanap Excavator plus Ghost Quarter is something that actually Jessup should be very concerned about.
So the deck plays 2 basic lands, Island, Swamp. The Island already in play. That Ghost Quarter, going to tag the Watery Grave, forces Jessup to get his Swamp out there, and then the Excavator will allow Todd to just play the Ghost Quarter every turn, and that's just going to strip mine Jessup.
All right, so Gurmag Angler will attack for 5.
Blocking with the voice or not is a minor decision. You don't want to get the Excavator in combat. You want to force Dan to have a removal spell with that. The Grixis Shadow deck does not have much in the way of reach. And these decks don't even play Lightning Bolt anymore. Really just 2 Kolaghan's Command as ways to go upstairs.
Todd will block with one of his Voice of Resurgences. Gets a Star Elemental. It's currently a 4/4. For Jessup, a Death's Shadow. 2/2 now, he could immediately make it a 5/5. And Todd will sacrifice Horizon Canopy, start that card advantage engine of Canopy plus Excavator.
Once he adds a Souza Lost But Seeking to the mix, he'll really be going off. 2 copies of that one in the main deck as well. Lets you play 2 additional lands every turn. Card that, up till now, has not seen much love in fair decks.
Yeah, you generally don't just play it for some value. You play it to do something very strong. And Ghost Quarter is going to start here. He'll hit Watery Grave, the tapped land from Dan. He right now has a swamp to get. That's going to be the last time he can get a card off it, though. Todd Osami replays the Ghost Quarter out of his graveyard. And now he'll take care of that basic island. Dan just continues shuffling. No more basics to get. Gurmag Angler, Snapcaster Mage, Stubborn Denial. The remains in his hand.
And you might not see Todd even cast any spells until those lands are gone. Even if he does, the Stubborn Denial is going to convert into a Voice of Resurgence token.
You see Jessup not using that Bloodstained Mire. It's really a nod to Ghost Quarter. It'll give him another turn's worth of mana.
He wants to try to find a window to actually use that to cast a relevant spell. Though at this stage in the game, he's very far behind.
Yeah, Gurmag Angler will attack. Some nice blocks from Todd Stevens, if he's willing to let that 4/4 go. Actually, he'll just take 5, go to 11. He's not under too much pressure.
Yeah, you chump with the Voice of Resurgence previously, replace itself with an Elemental. That's just a 4/4 now. It's pretty easy for his deck to get that up to a 5/5, 6/6 over time. He can afford to take 1 or 2 hits off the Gurmag Angler again because no lightning bolts in the deck, and with the Ghost Quarter being looped, Dan's never going to be able to cast a Kolaghan's Command.
Brings back Ghost Quarter again out of the yard on his own turn. Can bring Dan down to just 1 mana here. Says go. Just going to let Jessup untap for now. Jessup does draw a land. It is a Polluted Delta. So we have 1 dual land in the graveyard. How many actually mana-producing lands does Jessup have?
There are 2 Watery Grave, a Blood Crypt, a Steam Vent, and the 2 basic lands. So that's only 6 total.
All right, so 2 are already down. There's 4 left in his deck. Right now he still has access to all of the colors of mana off those 2 fetch lands.
Actually 3 left in the deck. Watery Grave has been tagged by Ghost Quarter already.
Right, so yeah, there's a second one there. Yeah, it's 1 Watery Grave, 1 Blood Crypt, 1 Steam Vents. So each of the 3 Grixis duels remains in his deck.
Right.
He'll swing the team. Death Shadow currently a 2/2, but could become much larger. Todd puts Voice of Resurgence in front of the 2/2, wants to get Dan to use one of those fetch lands, and looks like Dan will allow it. Though as he starts to go lower on life points here, he's got to be worried about a counter swing. These Voice of Resurgence elemental tokens are pretty real.
Yeah, one of Dan's few lines to win this game involves Todd making a swing that's for too much and Dan having a crackback himself, but you're right. Pretty easy combinations to make lethal here.
Gets Blood Crypt, and you see paying very attention to his own life total. Dan puts into play tapped, just so he can stay at 10. His Shadow becomes a 3/3. One Gurmag Angler and 3 blue cards in Dan's hand. Really can't play cards on Todd Stevens' turn until this Voice of Resurgence is gone. And that actually at that point, the Stubborn Denial will be online. Maybe only for 1 turn. And that'll work. Todd goes to 6, makes another Elemental.
And a lot of blue cards in hand for Dan. Currently Blood Crypt, Swamp, Fetch land, so if he wants to cast a blue one, it's going to involve cracking the fetch and finding an untapped duel.
Well, I think Todd, if he's sitting on Path to Exile, and I believe he is, he's looking to just win on the untap. Our first game in the books. It's over on the standard board. With the play, he's able to win, to take the initiative. It is Tom Ross, up 1 game on Jim Davis. And that's what we saw the first time they faced off this morning, too. Tom winning the pre-board game, though Jim was able to close the gap, winning the second game in the sideboard and taking the lead in the third game.
Yeah, Jim able to present more removal spells, some larger creatures, though deck lists are face up now, and Tom has played against this strategy before. He has a little bit more information on how he wants to navigate that one.
And it looks like post-combat, Jessup will make Gurmag Angler. And Todd says, yeah, path it, swing, and that's going to be the game.
Dan's seen enough.
Yeah, he tried to decide if he could play around Path to Exile, was not able to. So Todd Stevens takes a game here with Green-White Company.
And you really saw the power of Ghost Quarter here. A lot of the changes, as we've seen over time with these Death Shadow decks, they're just super focused on the mirror. Right. And one of the ways that other decks have exploited this, just going heavy on Ghost Quarter.
Yeah, well, what about on this Ramanap Excavator? It's a new card. It's really a second week since it's been legal, our first modern tournament with it legal. And I'm going to say it looked very good that game.
Crucible of Worlds is a card that has seen some fringe modern play. It shows up sometimes in the sideboard, sometimes even in the main deck of the do-nothing blue-white control deck as a way to Ghost Quarter, and this deck allows you to attack aggressively, get some creatures on the battlefield, and then have access to Excavator Ghost Quarter, so you just more aggressively do it.
Yeah, I'm interested to see how much of this we're going to see on the SCG Tour. Our next stop on the tour actually is Modern. We take a week off for the Pro Tour, but it's coming up in 2 weeks. It's going to be the Syracuse Open. In 2 weeks, that's going to be the Syracuse Open. We might see some Green-White Company there, especially if this one ends up taking down the trophy. Todd Stevens, I mean, in the matches we've had their team on camera, he's now 11-0 in games.
Right.
Now,
as we move on to the sideboards here, Todd Stevens' side, 2 Engineered Explosives, 2 Surgical Extraction, 2 Stony Silence, a Whisperword Elemental, Kastali Pride Mage, Linvala Keeper of Silence, Kataki War's Wage, Sigarda Jose Aaron, Zaven Mind Center, Ramya Excavator number 3, Blessed Alliance, and Reclamation Sage. So largely just looking for things that deal with Death Shadow. It's going to be your Engineered Explosives. Blessed Alliance also quite good here. That one can also hit a Delve threat.
Yeah, now after that last game, I want to talk about whether he wants the third Ramanap Excavator. The plan is to block and then recur this Ghost Quarter. I understand that it's a strange card to have in the sideboard when you have 2 in the main, but I really liked it when he had it there against Jessup.
Multiples don't do anything, and the Grixis Shadow deck's not very heavy on removal. And you have a little bit of time before you can start quartering them. In particular, the Grixis Shadow deck's going to find dual lands aggressively. It's basically when they draw their basics naturally.
That's when you get them.
That you really push it.
It's the situation where if I had 4 in the 75, I wouldn't put it up to 4, but I'd consider going to 3.
3 might be fine. The other 3s in the deck are just on average better, though it has the highest ceiling.
Yeah, I mean, he has to really establish a wall. And I guess if you look at that game, yes, Ramanap Excavator is the way that he won, but you can't ignore the double Voice of Resurgence that gave him the time to do that.
Right.
So as those on Dan Jessup's side, and one of the things about Green Company, it can be hard to sideboard against. Engineered Explosives, 2 Nile Spellbombs, a Ceremonious Rejection, a Stubborn Denial, 2 Teamer Battle Rage, 2 Liliana of the Veil, and a Liliana of the Last Hope, 2 Collective Brutality, and 2 copies of Flaying Tendrils.
So there are builds of green-white that cards like Liliana of the Last Hope, Flaying Tendrils are excellent against. They can be lights out. This is a build where they can be pretty good.
Right.
When your opponent's like just heavy on Kitchen Finks, Voice Resurgence, Liliana Last Hope just makes it so it's really easy to clean up. Night Owl Reliquary is quite good against this stuff. It's still good enough to bring in, but it's a little bit more awkward.
Right. Well, it's interesting, right? So if Todd has some of his 7 mana creatures in play, then Liliana the Last Hope's really good, and Liliana the Veil's really bad. And then when Todd has his 3 drops in play, it switches. Dan wants Liliana the Veil and not of the Last Hope. So there are situations where he'd want to board both of them in, but he doesn't really know how the game will shape up. If he could have the wrong one, and that's pretty penalizing. They're pretty bad in the wrong situation.
Mm-hmm. At the end of the day, though, really, this matchup is going to be around Jessup keeping Stevens off of a threshold of creatures,
right.
And the Planeswalkers are really his best way to do that.
Last thing, I'll get underway. I was going to ask Nile Spellbomb. He could fight over Knight of the Reliquary and Ramanap Excavator if he has the time.
Given that it replaces itself, that seems fine. There's a reasonable argument for Collected Brutality against anybody playing Collected Company and some creatures that die to -2/-2, so a good chance you'll see that one in as well.
All right, game 2, Jessup on the play. Going to end step, Shock, Fetch, Shock, Thought Scour. 3 cards in the graveyard, mills over the Gurmag Angler, picks up a Street Wraith. Supposed to do that in the other order, pick up the street. Well,
as long as he has some other delve threat, he'll be all right.
See a lot of his sideboard in hand. He has Engineered Explosives and Teamer Battle Rage at the ready.
Where Stevens is likely trying to set up explosives for 1, Jessup more likely to be trying to play that card for 3.
Right, that seems excellent on 3. It's interesting, the Teamer Battle Rage. I mean, Voice of Resurgence did a number on him that game. Battle Rage would have been great right there.
Yeah, any deck that's just throwing a bunch of toughness in your way, Battle Rage can really push through damage. Given that his volume of removal is actually relatively low, something like Battle Rage just kind of break open combat does make sense. And just a Scalding Tarn. We're back to Todd Stevens, so no delve threat for Jessup. Won't be able to apply more pressure just yet.
And Dan down to 15. He can put himself all the way down to 12 off that Fetch Shock.
Dan looks like he has picked up the sideboard Liliana the Last Hope. Won't be able to kill anything immediately, but he'll be able to get a Planeswalker on the battlefield, which is significant.
Dan will Shock down to 13 off that Blood Crypt. Uses Fetch Land to go to 12. We'll see if it's down to 10. It is. It's Steam Vents. The trio of Grixis lands in play for Jessup. Some more news here. All the game 1s going in the same direction. On the play, Jody Keith wins over Kevin King. And the 1 seeds, they're getting very close to rolling through the whole tournament. So Jessup's not going to go down without a fight. We have Liliana the Last Hope here on 3 mana. Mentioned situations with lots of mana creatures. This one was good. With lots of 3-drops, this one could be bad. Don't see any mana creatures right now.
Right. He'll at least be able to use the -2 ability to recur some creatures. Yeah, has already seen a Street Wraith. There's also the Gurmag Angler in the graveyard. No real rush to do that. You can plus freely and -2 on the following turn.
Sure. And he'll do the plus. Put Liliana up to 4. And the 3-drops will begin here by Todd. It's a Knight of the Reliquary.
Just a 3/3 currently. If Dan has Collective Brutality in and can produce that plus the Liliana activation, that would deal with that.
Yeah, with no 1 toughness creature in play, Dan will start using that Liliana ability. -2 puts 2 cards in the graveyard and brings a creature back to his hand. It will be Gurmag Angler.
And he's picked up Death Shadow as well, so he can build a pretty substantial board here.
Yeah, and I'm going to take an eye then toward this Teamer Battle Rage in his hand. I want careful about that one, as he's done a very good job of putting his life total down to 10. That Battle Rage is a lot of damage.
And Stevens has played a Ghost Quarter, but Dan has just found a bunch of dual lands. So that one would still just be able to find him a basic and wouldn't take him off any colors of mana.
Delve here for Gurmag Angler.
Really not much that he cares about maintaining in his graveyard.
Yeah, well, he could, if the Liliana survives, use it next turn. So it looks like he wants to keep Street Wraith.
And there's some argument for having Fatal Push there for Snapcaster Mage.
He will leave. It looks like the Fatal Push. I guess the third option was he could just spend a second mana, but with the deck being so land-light, that's a big cost. Death's Shadow next to Angler. Teamer Battle Rage, Island, and Engineered Explosives in hand. We'll go back over to Todd. Right now, the Knight of the Reliquary is a 3/3. Though thanks to Ghost Quarter, Todd could grow it up to a 5/5. He's not that far from making it big enough to block Gurmag Angler.
And just activating itself, go find a fetch land, crack the fetch.
You go.
Can make that quite large. Though he might get wrecked by this Teamer Battle Rage if he goes for a block. Actually, that's really not even that bad. He has so much life at this point in time. Dan's going to have to deal a lot more damage to himself if he wants to convert that meaningfully.
And look at these Ghost Quarters again. It's a second Ghost Quarter in play for Todd. He has Knight of the Reliquary to find more. This basic Swamp's in play, the basic Island's in Dan's hand. That's Todd's win con. If he can survive long enough to do it.
And he needs to get through this position here. He needs to be comfortable against the Shadow and the Angler. He needs to manage that Liliana somehow.
Yeah, there's work to be done, but really, if his hand, say, had a pair of Path to Exiles, this could be good enough. He's not that far from it.
It'd be easy from there. His pickup for the turn was Noble Hierarch. That one pretty poor with a Liliana, the last hope, hanging out on Jessup's side of the table.
Yeah, I'll pass on that. Looks like Blessed Alliance in hand for Todd. That card is pretty strong against this board, but it's not strong against Teamer Battle Rage.
If only one creature attacks, it is.
Then it's great.
And with so many ways to put lands in Todd's graveyard, he's kind of putting Dan in a position where maybe that is what he wants to do. The Gurmag Angler attack's not necessarily safe.
Yeah, I mean, Dan would have to get low enough on life points that one Battle Raged Shadow would deal 20. And yes, that's possible, but it's a lot to ask. He hasn't done any chip damage.
Dan.
Also keep in mind, I mean, a cute play here. Todd could use Blessed Alliance on Dan that turn. It would have actually gotten blown out by the Street Wraith. It's target player. He could have put Dan up to 14.
Yeah, target player gains 4 life.
Yeah.
More often comes up when your opponent controls multiple shadows and you just really get them.
Yeah. I mean, it would have been if he goes for that, Jessup then could cycle Street Wraith, keep his shadow alive. Todd throws away a card. And now it's out of range. Cycling Street Wraith, Jessup will go to 8.
It looks like Flaying Tendrils was picked up by Jessup. That one not effective on this board.
Surprised to see that in the deck. There are enough mana creatures that you could... There are boards where it would be incredible. There's also boards where it would do nothing. We see Serum Visions.
It exiles Voice of Resurgence, which is meaningful.
Okay, actually, that is good. That last game when Todd had multiple voices, Flaying Tendrils would have been incredible. See some scries here from Dan. Looks like another Street Wraith on top. He's trying to get very low on life for this Teamer Battle Rage.
And now with Jessup playing the basic island, Todd has these active Ghost Quarters.
Yeah, he knows. He knows that his Ghost Quarters, remember, deck lists are public, knows these Ghost Quarters are just wastelands, or better yet, strip mines here. They don't... Dan will not find any basic lands. the last hope. Mills over 2. Jessup puts a creature back in his hand. Looks like he'll pick one of these Street Wraiths.
Yeah, and likely the Street Wraith is exactly what he was looking for. Just another way to grow the shadow. That seems to be his game plan here.
Down to 6. Now he is in range where a Knight of Reliquary could just attack back for 6.
And with Ghost Quarter plus Knight activation, the Gurmag Angler, not a great attack here. It would take the Teamer Battle Rage to make him 2 for 1 himself. So good chance that the Shadow would just rumble across alone, and then the Blessed Alliance will just destroy Dan.
Jessup will go down, will Thought Scour himself. Draws into Fatal Push.
His land draw for the turn was Basic Island.
So no Revolt. He could Engineer Explosives for 0 and crack it to get Revolt.
Ugh.
Does he have Revolt online? He can target no matter
Liliana.
what. Liliana's gone.
-2.
Okay, so he doesn't have to do that. Yeah, this is just online. That's better then. I say if the Liliana hadn't left, I mean, this is a great play. And see what Todd can do. It's facing potentially lethal damage. There's nothing like Sagiri Step in his board, right? That protects the Knight of the Reliquary.
That's one I have not heard in some years, and yeah, I know that one is not available here.
That was the thing back when this card was in Standard. You'd see a one of in Knight of the Reliquary decks. It was
that
your
was
insurance
popular.
policy.
So
You know,
Todd
Todd-
also has
yeah.
Collected Company in hand.
Todd's the kind of player, if you asked him if he had Sagiri Step, he certainly wouldn't say, what's that card? He probably would have tried it. So, yeah, I had it for a few days, didn't like it.
Looking to activate Knight in response.
Okay, Knight will sacrifice the forest to go get another land.
Maybe just loading up on the rest of the Ghost Quarters. You also may as well get the land out of your deck.
See what he wants to grab. Some of his utility lands. 1 Gavany Township, 2 Horizon Canopy, and the 4 copies of Ghost Quarter.
Long way to be able to activate Gavany Township.
Yeah, 3rd Ghost Quarter. And pressure's on for Dan Jessup now, because in Standard, the match is finished. Tom Ross 2-0 is a winner over Jim Davis. And it's just one more game. Jody Keith or Todd Stevens would do it. So Dan swings, Blessed Alliance. Looks like escalated, so gain. Says Jessup gains 4 and sacrifices a creature.
And the 4 life on that side is going to be more meaningful than it is on Todd's side, just because shrinking the shadow accumulates to more life over time.
It is the same amount of damage no matter who you choose, right?
On that turn itself, yes, but that's not the last turn
And
of
you
the
might
game.
ask about the handshake, and it's because that game didn't even matter. It's a clean 5-0. Jody Keith wins 2-0 in Legacy. Tom Ross wins 2-0 in Standard. Todd Stevens 1-0 in Modern. You know, that round there, that finish pretty much sums up the tournament.
Yeah, and that game, you know, we obviously didn't see the conclusion, but Todd looked like he might have stabilized there.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, he's got a